Hi everyone, week 6 of our MPA545 course. We're taking a look at a couple additional ADRs, including early neutral evaluation, dispute resolution boards, mini trial, and summary jury trial. So I found all of these ADRs to be quite interesting. None of these are ones that I've currently used in my career where I was more familiar with negotiations, arbitration, mediation. So let's jump right into it and take a look at early neutral evaluation, or ENE. So this type of ADR is an appointment of a third-party neutral, usually a lawyer or a subject matter expert, and they provide the parties with a legal opinion, although not legally binding, about the range of outcomes they might expect if they litigated in court. And so that's where we're, right here where it says we're understanding the risks and the possible rewards. So this expert is kind of walking them through, based on the information they're collecting from both parties, what outcomes they can really face, and that'll kind of help to resolve the dispute in some way. So if they're telling one party like, hey, this isn't going to go the way that you want, might help to resolve it before it actually goes to court. So the article that I took a look at was the introductory primer on pre-litigation, ADR counseling from the outside lawyer. And basically it talked about that this is a good ADR to utilize if you have a client that says like, hey, the other side just doesn't understand my case. Like they're not getting it, they're not understanding. And so this neutral party can kind of walk both of them through the legal obligations, the reality of this case. So it's akin to mediation in that nothing is binding from this process. And the key element is to determine if some way the process can be facilitated with an early resolution. And so the neutral is not expected to help the parties resolve their dispute, just offer an opinion in the merits of the claim. It's a shorthand and simplified version of a mini trial, which we'll talk about in this presentation as well. Next, Dispute Resolution Board, or DRB. As someone who has worked in risk management before, I found this one to be the most interesting, as it's a huge risk mitigation factor. I think this is a great tool that can be used on projects. And so the article that I took a look at was the Alternative Dispute Resolution in United States Public Works. So what these DRBs are is a panel of experts that are led by an ADR professional, which is chosen jointly. And the presence of the expert is intended to reduce potential litigation. And so the DRB meets, a certain amount of time. The text talks about quarterly for full day sessions to get information on the project. So what the text says in this article supports is that this ADR is very successful when there is a carefully prepared contract beforehand. And so it's kind of interesting. The article pointed out that there is this Administrative Dispute Resolution Act that was passed in 1990. And when I tried to find more information on it, I couldn't find much. And I found out that it was indefinitely postponed by the Senate by unanimous consent. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Article also talked about the red tape that public sectors would have with these boards. So, a county or a city would already have their processes in place of how to handle certain things if there's an issue on a large scale project. And so that can kind of run into some issues with these DRBs, but was very interesting and I think would be a great option for very large scale projects. We have the Gold Line coming into my city, so kind of thought of that as an example. Next, we're taking a look at mini trial, which is an informal exchange. It basically enables disputants to engage in non-binding, voluntary, and structured hearings to resolve disputes over issues like liability, contracts, employee grievances. And so this is a highly private process. It's meant to maintain relationships. And while it's a more expensive option than mediation or arbitration, it's obviously far less expensive than litigation. And so the goal is to narrow dispute to critical issues and promote face-to-face dialogue, exchange information. The one thing that can be challenging with this one that prevents some people from using it is it can be quite costly. And so a 1 to 2 day trial could cost about $10,000 per side. So this can be used more for bigger corporations where that's kind of chump change if you're looking for, a large dispute that can be settled versus just going to court. And so this article focused on the roles of the participants in the mini trial, which was really helpful to kind of break down what would be everybody's role while they're participating in this type of ADR. And it's funny because it focused on the Army Corps of Engineers, and the DRB article I read also focused on the Army Corps of Engineers. So they seem to be a pioneer of a lot of these types of ADRs, which was interesting. So it broke down the role of the contractor and government trial attorneys, independent counsel, principal participants, neutral advisors, witnesses, both factual and experts, and the auditors. So next is the summary jury trial, or SJT. And so this one is basically the mock trial. It's non-binding, usually completed in about 1 day, and follows the discovery phase of case prep, which occurs prior to going to full trial. So it's an abbreviated format of a jury trial, which is basically why they call it a mock trial. So this party, or this ADR, allows for evidentiary objections to be resolved prior to the trial beginning. No witnesses are called. The jury holds brief deliberations, and the final phase occurs over several weeks where the parties engage in post-trial settlement conferences. If it's not resolved by this method, then it may go to full trial. So the benefit of this one is that it allows the disputants and the lawyers to see how a jury will react to the issue. And the article that I found, the author was kind of criticizing that how this is handled can really affect the outcome of this type of ADR. So there's some judges that tell the jury on the onset that the verdict is going to be advisory only, where some tell them after and some tell them never. And so the author basically says that if they tell them up front, it's kind of eliminating the advantage of this ADR altogether. So in the news, I was able to find a very relevant article that was talking about summary jury trials. So in Texas, they did their first one via Zoom. And so this snippet is from the article itself, and it talked about how the non-binding verdict was ideal to test the viability of holding these jury trials remotely as they try to conduct these types of, hearings and mock trials in person, during the pandemic. How are we getting through this? And so I thought it was kind of interesting to see how ADR is helping in a lot of different ways and how we're still trying to be flexible in utilizing it during these challenging times. All right, so that's it for my presentation. Looking forward to hearing everybody else's, and thank you for your feedback.